Welcome to WorkSpan TV. I am Lenny Sanicola.
And I'm Rose Stanley.
Within every wellness program, there are components that are often overlooked: behavior modification, behavior change, and employee readiness. So Rose, today let's talk about the stages of change that are often overlooked when we put in a wellness program. The first stage is something called PreContemplation. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Sure, Lenny. PreContemplation is actually when an employee may not even realize what they may be dealing with. So they don't have any knowledge of any type of illnesses or risk factors that they may have.
Now the next stage is something called Contemplation. What is that about?
Well, actually that's when they're starting to finally become aware of what they may be dealing with. So their risk factors are being finally defined for them. You may see that through offering a health risk assessment where they are finally seeing that they may have cholesterol issues, they may have high blood pressure, they may have a weight issue. This is where you're trying to get the employee to understand what issues they may be dealing with. Most employers already know the employees or their dependents that are having issues that are either in disease management or they have claims that are already occurring for those employees. But you want to really take a look at your entire demographics because it's usually a larger group of employees that you have no idea what's going on with them, and that actually could be a bigger concern for employers.
The contemplation phase sounds like an educational phase, so I would imagine in addition to health risk assessments, this is a phase where you might provide brown bag luncheons or health fairs or pamphlets, newsletters, a lot of to create that awareness. Now incentives, I would imagine, also can be part of this phase. Is that true?
Absolutely. I think that during the pre-contemplation stage, especially when you're doing a health risk assessment, you're trying to get that participation. We've seen over the years as employers are putting in their wellness programs that they're usually offering some type of nominal incentive to participate in those health risk assessments, perhaps even to attend some of those seminars or brown bag lunches or webinars that's giving them some education about the issues that they're dealing with. But usually what we're seeing is that they're more nominal. They may be gift cards or they may be de minimis dollar amounts that they're offering to employees to get them to participate.
The next stage is preparation. What happens here?
Employers need to understand that some of these stages are going to take a long time to move those employees throughout the continuum. So the preparation stage is really then saying, okay, we know what we're dealing with, we've done some type of health risk assessment, we know what our demographics and what our population looks like, what are we going to offer to them in our wellness programs that's going to be able to affect those changes that we want our employees to make. So the preparation stage is really helping those employees understand what their risk factors are and what some positive changes that can be done to help them move along that continuum. It might be some more of those educational components that you were talking about, or it could be offering some type of nutritional counseling, some weight management issues, some ways to lower their stress, some of those types of things. It's all about getting those employees to not only become aware, but then to say, you know what I can do to actually affect that may not be that difficult, or it's something that I'm finally interested in. And what you're ultimately trying to do is move them to the next stage, and then we want to see them actually making some changes.
Okay, so the next stage is action, and I would imagine this is was where the rubber meets the road, because all the awareness and preparation in the world, if we don't move people and modify their behavior change to get them to take action, we really aren't successful. So tell us a little bit, you mentioned a couple of programs like nutritional counseling and diet and weight programs that employers can offer. What else occurs in the action stage?
The action stage is where the people are finally doing something about it. What employers really need to know, and I know we've said this before in other areas, that when you're trying to affect a change in perhaps lowering your healthcare costs in your organization and you put in a wellness program, you realize that in order to really see some positive changes and affect those costs, it's going to take 3 to 5 years to actually see something happening. That is because it's all about behavior change. So getting somebody from the pre-contemplation to the preparation to the action stage is really going to take some time. Employers need to understand that it's going to be something that they're going to be working on for several years, because an employee takes a long time, an individual takes a long time to finally say, I understand my issue, I'm finally going to do something about it. So what you may be seeing there is more encouragement. We see some organizations that are actually offering coaching to really get those employees to help move them to that action stage. But this is a stage, Lenny, as we're going to talk about, is where you can again start to rethink some of those incentives that you're offering to your employees.
So let's talk more about that. I know in the contemplation stage we talked about using incentives, but here is also where we can use incentives. Is the use of incentives different in this stage versus the contemplation stage, and why is that?
Well, I think that it can be different, and probably it should be different. I think that employers really need to start looking at, okay, we're finally getting you to the action stage. This is where we want to see some changes made. So let's really think about what type of incentive is going to help that employee and motivate that employee to move more towards that action stage and stick with it. Because making a behavior change is, again, once getting there, it's going to take some time, but then actually getting that change to occur is going to take some time. If you have an obesity or a weight issue in your organization, it's going to take some time to actually get them to lose that weight and get down to a healthy weight. So what you want to do is perhaps change that incentive. You may up the ante. It may be gift cards, but you may be starting to think of other things that you're going to do. You want to give them a lot of recognition, and perhaps you're going to think about changing the incentive to maybe change in the premiums that they may be paying for their healthcare costs. That seems to be something that can actually motivate employees.
Are you finding more employers taking the carrot versus the stick approach at this stage for action?
I think that what we've seen in some of our survey data is that they are using the stick with certain types of things, such as tobacco use. They are really starting to think about, you hate to say that it's a penalty, and sometimes they may change that around. It's still a penalty for those that may be using tobacco, but they may offer it and communicate it in a way that it's an incentive for those that don't use tobacco. But yes, I am seeing more organizations actually start to take a look at that.
You talked a little bit earlier about once we have people take action, obviously we have to keep them engaged and make sure they continue along that path. The next two stages are maintenance and relapse. So talk about those stages relative to keeping people engaged once they've identified their issue and they're trying to modify their behavior to address it.
Well, absolutely. I think that you don't want to think that the end game is your maintenance stage. That's actually where the rubber is meeting the road for a long-term basis. So you want those employees to stay healthy, and you're continuously going to be bringing in new employees that you're going to want to walk through this process. But in the maintenance stage, you fear the next stage, which is the relapse stage. So that stage is something that employers really need to consistently reinforce, recognize the good behavior, keep those programs in place that are going to allow those employees to maintain that good behavior that they've been working so hard towards for perhaps 3 to 5 years.
Rose, thanks so much for your insights. For WorkSpan TV, this is Lenny Sanicola.
And I'm Rose Stanley.